Hey everyone, it's Micah with Membarium, and today we get the pleasure of talking with Kim Snyder, who runs a company called Sane Crypto. And Kim's agreed to show us her membership site and talk about her marketing and her members' experience, and basically be a case study for using Membarium with active campaigns. So Kim, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. It's my pleasure to do it.
So I've known you a while, and we actually had you on a podcast recently. But for the people who haven't seen any of that or don't know you, can we start off a little bit by just telling everyone a little bit about yourself and a little bit about this business, Sane Crypto?
Sure. A little bit about myself. I'm a 20-plus year veteran of the financial services industry. I started an investment firm back in, I actually started out as an options trader on the Chicago Board Options Exchange in the late 90s and started an investment firm in 2000, right? Bad timing, but, and grew that to a two-time Inc. 500 list company. And I ended up retiring in 2009, moving to South Carolina, thinking that I was never going to get back into the investment business. Sold the company actually to some of our earliest employees. And then along came cryptocurrency. And that was really the first time that I had any interest in investing again. In the meantime, although investing is really my background, I could also bill myself, I guess, as a serial entrepreneur. I've started 14 different companies. At the time that I retired, that was company number 9. And, I'm now on company number 15. So you can debate whether I was really retired or not. But, I had a couple of lifestyle companies in the interim. So those are my two things, investing and creating companies. And so then crypto came along and I got very intrigued. I saw that there was a tremendous amount of really bad advice that was being given. I also saw it as an opportunity for my tribe because when I built my investment firm, I had really focused on helping near retirees close the retirement savings gap. And I saw that cryptocurrency was an opportunity to do the same. And so I started Sane Crypto. And at the moment, what Sane Crypto is, it's really funny because it's like Groundhog Day. It's exactly the way I started my investment firm, which was by teaching people a very specific way of investing. Back then it was in the stock market. Now it's in cryptocurrency. So it's a course. Back in the day, that was pre-internet or when the internet was very embryonic. And so I used to teach those courses live in front of, an audience. But now obviously we do that over the internet. It's an online course. And over time, hopefully it will grow into something that's a little bit broader, but for now, that's really what it is.
Gotcha. Appreciate you sharing. And I should point out too that you're an excellent marketer. So it's not just in finance, as you said, serial entrepreneur, but when I met you, you were doing, marketing consulting and CRM stuff. And so just for everybody listening, this is a real treat because Kim's got a lot of experience, a lot of success. And also, I think for me, especially, it's a treat because I'm just into crypto. So I bought your course. And one of the things where I want to start is I find it interesting that a month or so ago when we first talked, you didn't yet have a membership site, but you were selling a course, or information or whatever. And, so in that podcast, we talked about how for you getting started, it wasn't about, hey, I have to have a membership site. It was basically like, hey, I have value to add. However I deliver it isn't as important as that your content's good, you're finding your market. And, even as a membership site person, I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was, and we went kind of in depth on how for you, it was kind of starting with the product first and the marketing and finding the hook and so forth. So it sounds like it's evolved a little bit. You've got your membership site, and that's what she's showing on screen is not the membership site, but the sales site. So let's just walk through a little bit, if that's okay, your customer's experience. So, where are you generating traffic? And then I guess they come to this site. and walk through kind of what happens before they become a member, if you don't mind.
Sure. So in the same way that I create investment processes, just to circle back to this for a second, I also create marketing processes. That's just, that's just where my brain works. Okay. And so the process that I've developed over years, in fact, it was only with kind of 2020 hindsight that I realized it was a very similar process that I used to build Snyder Advisors, which was my investment firm, the 2-time Inc. 500 firm. Is this idea of what I call a reverse funnel. And instead of starting at the top of the funnel, meaning spending all kinds of time and effort on your marketing and on content and on all this stuff, before you know that you even have a product that you can sell, you start at the bottom of the funnel. You do everything in a just minimum viable everything, and you prove each step of the way, and then you can iterate as you prove and work your way backward towards what people ultimately see as, all the content and the pretty sites and all of those things. But all of those things are just a complete waste of time until you've proven that you can sell whatever it is that you're doing, right? And so that's the premise. And so this is probably third or fourth or maybe even fifth iteration that you're looking at now. Just to give you a timeline, I started Sane Crypto in, I literally had the idea over Thanksgiving weekend. Okay. So I started working on it basically the 1st of December. And here we are, early July. So that will also give you kind of a sense. So the interesting thing is I have always brought in, so my funnel has traditionally been do a minimal website, drive someone using Facebook ads to a webinar, and try to sell them before you even have a course, right? Because you can always say, sorry, we didn't get enough people, and and tell them, sorry, I don't, no course. But that's how until they take out your checkbook, you don't know that you can sell, right? But the problem I have with cryptocurrency is that Facebook, right about this, very quickly after I started this, decided along with Google and Twitter and LinkedIn and others that they were not going to allow advertising on cryptocurrency. So I've had to be a little bit more creative and also be a little bit more patient, because I'm not able to drive the really big numbers in without spending exorbitant amounts of money. And another thing is that I want to bootstrap, right? So, okay. So with all that as backdrop, I'll tell you, right now, most of my traffic comes from my podcast. And I had interviews that I do on other people's podcasts. So that's been my primary focus, which is a longer tail, but it's working very, very well. I've been quite pleased with it. So what happens is, this is the homepage of the site, and the homepage of the site is the sign up page for my webinar or free training. I'm a very big believer in the hook. I spend a lot of time working on the hook, and I go through many iterations of it. So, this is mine. If you know anything about cryptocurrency, people think it's risky. So the thought reversal of my hook is that actually investing in cryptocurrency isn't risky. It's not investing that's risky. And in fact, it may actually allow near retirees to retire sooner, so it's that, and that hook is right here on the homepage. It's the first thing that you see, right? Can a sane strategic investment in cryptocurrency make your retirement savings last a lot longer? Join the free training, which will just bring you down here. Now, again, as I say, this is, fourth or fifth iteration. It didn't look quite this nice at first. You'll see my membership site is still pretty rudimentary, but anyway, just your typical, what I do is I do a webinar every single Tuesday night, have done since November, from 8 to 9:30. It's a live webinar, And again, it's that process of iterating. Sometimes I have one person in that webinar. Sometimes I have 30 people, sometimes whatever. It doesn't matter, because what I always am listening and learning and trying to refine, the hook and the pitch and all of those things. So that's how I do it. Weekly webinar, over and over and over again. If you saw my slide decks, you'd see there are many, many iterations of those. And then, so just again, the name of the webinar is the hook, right? Doesn't need to be anything else. Once you find your hook, you should just play it for all it's worth. How a little bit of Bitcoin can make your retirement savings last a lot longer. Here's what you'll get. Sign up, very simple. A little bit about me, and then that's it. That is my homepage. And that is the main way that I bring people into my funnel. So podcast, predominantly, to webinar. Also, I get some referrals, obviously, but that's it at the moment. It's pretty straightforward.
So in the past, and I just say this because a lot of people doing membership sites obviously aren't in crypto. In the past, when you first started, you were doing Facebook Lives as a source of traffic more than the podcast. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Okay. So the way that I do it is, and I did do this with Sane Crypto as well. So Facebook allows you to doesn't allow you to advertise, but they will still allow you to create a page and to do Facebook Lives. And so I'm a big believer in using Facebook Lives for fine-tuning this hook. So in the beginning, I did do quite a lot of Facebook Lives. And in fact, if you go to my blog, you'll find that if I go to some of these older posts, these are all the Facebook Lives. There we go. These that don't have photos on them, were all the Facebook Lives I did back then, trying to test out response to various hooks and ideas to see what was going to get engagement, see what people were biting on. It was at the time also a way, obviously, of generating custom audiences that I could then retarget, which now I can't. But yeah, I did do that, and I did a lot of it. And you can see I did it fairly regularly, starting in December, until I got to something that was workable for my webinar, and then I started using Facebook advertising to drive them to the webinar until Facebook wouldn't let me do that anymore. And that's when I switched over to the podcast. Does that make sense?
It does. So I just want to dive a little bit deeper into this whole idea. When you talk about minimum viable everything, I love that term because I'm a big believer in MVP, minimum viable product, but minimum viable everything makes even more sense. And a lot of people, and sorry, some of this is kind of repeating what we talked about a little bit in the podcast, but for the people who haven't seen that, your whole concept of a reverse funnel, starting at the bottom of the funnel and selling people into a program, I love, because so many people think, I'm going to go create free content and I'm going to blog and I'm going to do, all these activities and busy work and whatnot to build up a giant audience. And then maybe someday make a membership site. Like once my audience is big enough, then I'm justified in creating a membership site. And you working completely backward here, let's talk about that just a little bit more, because when you talk about refining your hook, for those people, and I've shared our conversation recently, and a couple people I was a little bit surprised at. In hindsight, it makes sense, but at the time I was surprised because they were like, well, what's a hook? Talk to me more about what a hook is. So can you explain a little bit, your strategy sounds like it was around finding this hook, and that was kind of your priority above building a big Twitter following or whatever other thing. So talk more about the hook, kind of what that is, and maybe how this is a better hook. I know you're testing, but can you talk through that process a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, this is so critically important. And this is the sort of thing that people think they can spend an hour or two on, and it takes months. I am mentoring a guy right now who is who I'm hoping to take over one of my businesses. And we've been working on the hook for 4 months. We are just this week going to finally do a webinar after 4 months of trying to find the hook. It's that important. If you don't have the right hook, it doesn't matter what else you do. People won't buy from you. And if you do have it, they will. And everything else can be, I don't want to say crap, because you have to bring value, obviously, but they'll forgive you so much if you can tell them what's in it for them in the right way. So what is the hook? So there are 5 P's that you have to define for your marketing, right? Those are the problem, the premise, the problem, gosh, I haven't said these in so long, I'll probably forget them, but the persona, the promise, and I forget the 5th one. But what the hook is once you have your premise, your problem, and your promise, it is a way of stating either the problem or the promise or both in a way that creates an energetic response. And what I mean by that energetic response is that if someone was at a cocktail party and they heard you say your hook, like that, it would be like saying their name from across the room. They'd go, wait, what? I need that. Excuse me, I need to go talk to that person. That's what you're trying to get to. That's a hook. It's not, if someone doesn't get that sort of a visceral response to it, let me rephrase that. If your customer, your ideal customer, doesn't get that sort of a visceral response to it, you don't have it yet. So the reason that we do Facebook Live after Facebook Live after Facebook Live and Facebook ad after Facebook ad after Facebook ad before we've even created a product, and then webinar after webinar after webinar is we're looking for that hook. Now there comes a point, you can only look so long, right? And hopefully by then, you know your market well enough that you have a decent hook, one that will work, but sometimes it can take years before you finally get just the right one. In my investment firm, I always tell the story about how, we did really well for probably 3 or 4 years with, the various marketing messaging that we were using. But it wasn't until I landed on this retirement issue and I started talking about people ending up being 92 years old, ending up under a bridge, eating cat food, right? And our business suddenly hockey sticked. And I can directly correlate it to when I found the hook, the right hook that resonated to when you start to see that upward curve. So, I was not conscious back then of what I was doing in iterating, trying to find that hook. Now I know that's exactly what we were doing. And that when we found it, that's when we took off. But that's it. And that's how important it is. So does that answer your question? I didn't really talk about, though, so much about how right? But it's that testing.
Yeah, so it does, I think, demonstrate the importance of it. And I agree completely. I had a membership site that I had built and thought it was great, got no sales, read about, studied, figured out my hook, sales through the roof. So it's a big determining factor in the success of a membership site, probably any business, but where we're talking about this site here, that really caught my attention when you talked about how hard you looked for the hook, because even I in the past have built the other way around, and all that effort went to waste until I found the hook. So I love finding it first. Tell me a little bit about, so you mentioned kind of the 5 Ps. How do you know, aside from the reaction from the audience, how are you guessing at constructing a hook? Is there like an anatomy of the hook? Or maybe a better way to ask it is, did you figure this out because customers were saying, hey, what I really want is X? Like, is it the customer's language? Is it you just simply testing random stuff? How do you kind of arrive to it, and what's it made of?
It's funny. It's kind of all of those things. Let me just show you one thing. This is about to go off line, but it's still here. So I'll show it to you. So, so this is my old reverse funnel site. So you can see here, this is the hook, because always right here on the headline, right? And it's create a $100,000 online course by the end of 2018 without a blog, email list, team, huge ad budget, or even a product, okay? So the idea, so you asked about the anatomy of a hook. There's several formats that you can use, but the easiest one is Frank Kern calls it how to yay without boo, basically. So in this case, the yay is a $100,000 online course, and with the timeline on it, without boo, is a blog, an email list. The more you listen to your customer, I totally did not start here with that. It took, I mean, I even had the reverse funnel in mind, but in terms of like how to attract people to it, where they go, yes, you've got to find a way to tap into that problem and that promise, you know, in a way that just hits them in the gut almost, right? Or they say, yes, I need that. Yes, I want that. And what I was hearing from people on this was they were just constantly talking about the fact that, you know, you just can't possibly, I'm a solopreneur, I can't get all of this stuff done. You know, I hear all these big guys that, you know, the info marketer whiz kids, and they talk about creating all this content and blog and blah, you know, and I'm never going to be able to do that. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Right. So you can't, you can't. And so it was when I finally got to this one, not saying that that was the ultimate one. If I'd kept at this business for longer, I probably would have found something better, but it is. And it's why I do a live webinar once a week. You know, the problem is people just don't want to put in the work. You know, it's like, oh, I need to get my hook and move on so I can make some money. That is the work. And so by just listening to the questions and, you know, so a lot of times it's just trying ideas, but a lot of times it'll just come to you like out of the blue and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I got it. But where that comes from is just listening and being empathetic and, you know, taking comments and questions and reading and, you know, as much as you can to get inside the head of your ideal customer.
Yeah, thanks for going into that, because I deal with membership site owners all the time, and they don't get out. They don't put themselves out there or get enough immediate feedback. You know, they'll spend all this time building the course thinking that, hey, I'm an expert in this field, and so I know what people want. And then they'll go and offer it and be like, it's got 12 modules, there's 50 video, you know, and they're obviously, you know, those are just features, not benefits. But I think a hook is even a couple layers above that, because most people who know anything about marketing, they know you do the benefit, not the feature, but the kind of the angle or whatever. And it's weird because I've stumbled on it a couple times, and so I know the value of it, but I'm not an expert at it. I don't know quite how to do it, you know, predictably, but it sounds like you're saying just iterate, and it's a lot of work. So
yeah,
question.
I mean, there is a process to it. I mean, you know, I mean, that's what I actually used to sell in, you know, in the reverse funnel. But so you know, you can get it down to a process, but at the end of the day, that really is what it is figuring out what your, you know, what the pain is, what the problem is, and what the promise that your product is going to make, and figuring out a pithy way to say that, you know, gets that head snap. That just takes lots of elbow grease.
Gotcha. No, thank you. And sorry to
go
ahead.
Just to one more thing, you know, to that, to what you said there, Mike, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but, you know, to your point about the building out the whole course and the, you know, the 50 modules and stuff before you have the hook. I mean, you know, to that end, I would say the same thing. Until you have your hook, you cannot possibly build a product, because you don't know it is that you're trying to solve for. And so in the beginning, you have to keep it really loose. I believe you create your first courses, as I have always done. You kind of wing it, you do them live. You never create videos to begin with, because you're going to have to redo all of them, but
Yeah.
once you get all this stuff settled and sorted, even if you're not in something that changes all the time, like cryptocurrency, you should be speaking directly to that hook and that persona. And you don't know that yet. So how can you put all that work and put all that into stone until you do? And then, so that's why I started, by the way, to pull this up. This can maybe lead us into the membership site discussion. But my first 5-10 groups of customers are always a live course. I teach it over, not live in front of people now, but using Zoom, but where we sit down for 4 hours, at a time with an outline, barely anything, and I teach. And I listen to, the questions and concerns and what's not clear and all of those things and what they don't like. And then the next time I teach it again and again and again. And only then do I start to begin to break those out into videos. And my early videos, these aren't them, but my earliest videos are just, me teaching, that course, which I start to break up into chunks. And then gradually, this was my first membership site. And it's not really, obviously, right? It was just a playlist on YouTube. That was it. Before we had a membership site. And that's what I mean by this process of iterating, because, to me, you can't even have a slide deck. It's just a waste of my effort until I know what people want me to teach them. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I did want to ask, so at first, before you had a site, basically you were kind of selling a YouTube playlist, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was selling. Before that, I was selling, you and me and three other people were going to meet every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. for a week. And I was going to teach you what I knew about whatever, marketing, cryptocurrency, whatever it is. That's how I started my investment course 20 years ago. Was some friends asked me to teach them what I was doing. And so we would get together after work and I would start drawing on a whiteboard, and then they started bringing their friends and their friends, and then started bringing parents. And it was only over a period of years that I ended up having a book and a process and all of those things. And so to me, that's very natural that you figure out what you're teaching by teaching it. And then, and only then, do you start to commit it into something more formal.
Gotcha. So now you've gone from the playlist to putting those videos into a membership site. Can we have a look at the membership site, maybe as a member?
Yeah, and so you'll notice. So this will kind of give you a sense of the iterative process. So if you'd have seen my website, this website, it wasn't quite that stark, but the first couple iterations of it were pretty stark. And then so this is the first iteration of the membership site, actually. And you and I had a conversation on the phone, and I will tell you, this took me less than 2 hours to put together. Okay, that's how much time I spent on it, because I actually think that's, for the first iteration, that's about right.
Well,
So
real quick, if I could jump in. When we were talking, I think just to touch on that point, because a lot of people think, oh, a membership site's so hard and it's going to take so long and whatever else. But your focus was on just delivering, the content that you already knew or already had. And so you just put it in a basic membership site, and that's why it took 2 hours, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because if you come over here and you look at one of these videos, you'll see that this, again, this was in a playlist, in an event, and this was what they were getting. Well, that one actually doesn't have a lot, but most of these just have notes. in the bottom of the videos. And that was, that was it. That was the course, basically, and they could ask me questions if they had them, right? So basically all I was doing was there were some other pages. I had some stuff in a, I was giving them some Google Docs as reference, and, so I had some other stuff. And so, yeah, then it was just a process of taking that material that I'd already created that was in just this very loosey-goosey form previously, and now just putting it basically in one place. So if I'm a member, just to show you what you can see from, from a login, some of this stuff is protected, the video library, obviously, but, my suggested resources, additional reading is not. And so if I log in, see, I don't have a pretty login page or anything like that. So let's see.
I love it so much, by the way. You don't even know, just the basic membership site idea and getting it going, because you can always iterate, just like you're iterating your marketing. You can iterate the membership site as long as you don't invest forever building the first version when you don't know anything yet, because then people think, oh, rebuilding is going to be such a pain. But it's like, I threw in 2 hours, go tweak it. It's not a big deal.
Right. And so for me right now, yeah, I'm at that stage where initially all my, focus was going into making my marketing work, and then learning on the content side and nothing on the membership delivery side, right? And then as my marketing got stronger and stronger, and I started, to have a sense of that and feel like that was going to work and it was worth the effort, then I started putting more and more effort into the content of the course, right? And a little tiny bit here. And now as the course starts to settle in, then I can, come back here and start to iterate over how we deliver the course and all that sort of thing, right? So yeah, it's sort of what I think of it as concentric circles each time you make an iteration. So in terms of the site, we use LearnDash for the the course management, and within each one of these, it's just dead simple. I did literally, I think, no styling to speak of. It's oops, there we go. It's the same, by the way, it's those same videos that YouTube videos that are in that original playlist, which I've just transferred here. Some of these lessons have a lot of notes, some of them don't. For example, if I go here, yeah, so this would be something more typical where underneath each one of the videos, you've got some notes, you've got some FAQs. And this is a big thing that I do, by the way. I tell my people, because they know that they're getting the price they're getting because it's not this, multi-year fully baked thing. And I say to them, as things change, I'm not going to redo every single video every time something changes, especially in cryptocurrency, because it changes a lot. So read the notes, because a lot of times the notes are an integral part of the of the program. And so between the notes and the FAQs and the video, which in the video is more of the step-by-step stuff, then that gives them everything that they need. And so what I have is I have the video library, which again you just saw, which is divided up into one course, 9 modules with, I think it works out to be 40 some odd videos all told. Again, I have the suggested resources, FAQs, additional reading, referral program, change password, how do you get support, and that's it. That is it.
To me, it's a really a perfect example of a minimum viable site. And I say that partially because you used LearnDash, which I think adds so much value for so little money, versus having to code in all this stuff. If you would, for a second, just click on the first video and mark it complete, just so they can kind of see what LearnDash is doing there, how it's just putting the check mark on them. So, for everybody watching, you can see, it's not like Kim put a ton of effort into the design of the site. And since you guys don't know her, the fact is she could, she's technically proficient enough to add all the bells and whistles that you would see on another site, to get a designer to whatever, she wanted to do to this thing, but she knows it's not necessary. And when you say, Kim, that, it's the price is low because it's not this big multi-year crazy thing. I mean, it's a healthy price. I think I paid $1,000 for it. I don't know if the price has gone up since then, but
it's $14.97 right now.
Yeah. So it's, she's not, there's a reason she's doing this. It's a healthy business. There's money to be made. But people, myself, and I would imagine other people as well, they don't really care that there's not a community area on the site. They don't, all the stuff that a lot of membership site people think they have to include, full gamification, quizzes, badges, certificates. It's like, no, if the value's there, and I think that starts way back at the hook of, if that's what they want, if it's so enticing, they'll go through whatever the customer experience is, not even saying this is a bad customer experience, but just they're not looking for, the most pleasant customer experience. They're looking for the result. They're looking for the content, for the learning, whatever, more than the prettiest site in the world. And yeah, you might have some member who's complains about it. I don't know if you ever have, I doubt it, but it's, this is all you need. You can make money with just like, here's a basic WordPress site, super basic theme. I would suggest throwing on LearnDash just because to me, it's a no-brainer. And obviously you're using ActiveCampaign on the other side of this, right? On the CRM side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So can we can we have a look at maybe some of your campaigns there, just how this happens from the automation side of things?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just show you. If you look, so for me, it looks like this. I do now, although I just added opt-ins to my site last weekend. So I've been in business for, 5 months now, 6 months, and I just got my opt-ins up because that's the top of the funnel, not the bottom, right? So again, it's that iterating thing. And you think, but how are you collecting emails? Well, they sign up for the webinar, and is that as fast as people who are signing up for some sort of a content, lead magnet thing? No, of course not. However, you can argue that those are the people who are really interested, so it's okay until you get to that point. So now what my funnel looks like is there is 2 opt-ins, and I'll just go ahead and show this to you. So the retirement calculator is at the moment the main opt-in. So what happens is someone asks for the retirement calculator, and the campaign is very simple in that it subscribes them to our email list, gives them a tag, and then sends them a email that either drives them to the webinar if they haven't registered for the webinar ever before, or to the course if they have. And just to kind of show you where they go if they also, as the thank you page, let's see if I can remember this from scratch. So the thank you, nope, that's not it. Hang on. The thank you page that they go to also is, thought that was it. There we go. Okay, so they can get their retirement calculator. They can go to the instruction page. There's also driving to the webinar, which is the next step. In addition to that email that they got sent. As well, if they go to the instruction page, which also we do send them to in the email at the bottom of that, driving them to the webinar, right? So typical funnel stuff. So again, they get their email and then that's it. They're out of that automation for now. I don't have huge follow-up sequences where I'm, sending them 20 emails after they opt in or anything like that. You'll notice my sequences are all very short, at this point, again, because at this point, these are still very early in the process of, minimum viable. So, and I'm not a big believer in necessarily 1,000 email campaigns anyway. So, all right, so that's it. So that's my new lead magnet. Then when they register for the webinar, that's one campaign. Okay, so it's very simple. What it does is, again, subscribes them to the email list. You do that at each step. This is actually a little script that sets a lead source in ActiveCampaign, tags them as having registered, and again, sends them the email with the link for the webinar. Now, what's happening in the background, I should tell you, is that there is a zap that goes off when they register, a zap in Zapier, that is actually registering them for the webinar in Zoom, and then sending the registration link back to ActiveCampaign, putting that in a custom field, which is then included in all future emails. But I won't necessarily show you that unless you just want to see it. And then that is it. What I do, I'm a big believer in chunking. So what I do is I chunk my automations. And so rather than just keep going and going and going, what this does is it puts them into the next automation and drops them out of this one. So the next automation is the webinar reminders. So if we go to that automation, that is just exactly probably what you would expect. We wait for 8 hours after their registration. So they've gotten that first email, which I could show you the email, but, and then as long as it's between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. on a weekday, meaning kind of working hours, they get this kind of personalized email from me. It doesn't look like the other ones. It's not, I don't pretend it's personalized, but its tone is, hey, if this is something, it's a a value add. If this is something that you're really serious about, here's the big log jam. It's opening these bank accounts, and it takes weeks, and so go ahead and get started. Most people, by the way, open a separate bank account, which most people don't know. So it gives them a very quick aha 8 minutes after they sign up for the webinar to kind of get them excited, because obviously getting people to attend a webinar is really difficult. And right now I'm doing really well. Like last night's webinar, I had it was small, but like out of 11 people registered, I had 6 show up. So, so I'll take that any day of the week, because that's something that I can scale up. Once you've perfected those numbers, that's when you scale it up, right? So anyway, so there's that. And then what happens is the typical 24 hours before, they get a reminder email, 8 a.m. the day of, 1 hour before, and then it drops them into the follow-up campaign. And my follow-up campaign is very short. It's not your typical launch kind of campaign. So what happens is, if you attended the webinar, you will come over here in this branch, and that is because what you will get from me is, anyone who attends, I make a personal video for each one of my attendees the next morning. I sit down, I use Loom. If you're not familiar with Loom, it's an amazing tool. You're shaking your head. Micah, are you not familiar with Loom?
I'm not, no.
Okay, I have to show you Loom. It's the best. So if I go to Loom, I can click it right here. It's a one of these recording tools. But what makes it so amazing is that it's got all kinds of cool things that you can do. But the main one is that I'm going to end this here, because I'm sure the main one is that you can embed it. You can actually embed the video. It embeds itself in an email, in the Gmail as opposed to you having to put an image. And so it's so simple. I think their hook, back to hooks, they have a really good hook. It's like speaking is faster than typing or something like that, so their idea is they've designed it to be a substitute for writing an email, that you can record a Loom faster than typing an email. And I use them constantly. They tell you when someone's read it, all these sorts of things. So it's a really cool and easy thing to do. And so that morning, I just sit down and record however many I need to for, well, you can see I've got 6, right? Out of the 11, 6 who showed up, they'll get personal emails from me. And there won't be anything in that email literally other than the video. So that email will say, Mark or Micah or whoever, what do you see as the next step? I can't remember it exactly, but what do you see as the next step in investing in retirement for cryptocurrency? Question mark, bracket, video, bracket. And when you open it, there's a video and warmest regards, Kim. And that's it. And it comes straight out of my Gmail. It's very obvious that I've made it because I say, hi, Micah, thanks for attending last night, blah, 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 right? It's 2 or 3 minutes and I send that. That's my follow-up sequence. So this is kind of another theme we really haven't talked about. One of the things you'll notice, you talked about support groups and community and badges and all of that stuff. Maybe it's just me, but because I love working with people and I love helping people, and I would much rather work with 5 people than have 200 people in my, continuity program. Like I like doing this. This is what I enjoy doing, right? You can see like, ooh. And so for me, I am always substituting personal connection for automation or automated, if you will. So like, yeah, I don't have a Facebook group. I give people my cell phone number. To me, that's better. I would, so you'll kind of always tend to see me trying to substitute a personal interaction in an automated or manageable way, as opposed to, now can you, and people will say, well, you can't do that to get big. You'd be amazed. My investment firm, we had $500 million in assets under management. We were multi-7 figures. I had literally thousands of clients, and yet every one of those thousands of clients would tell you, that they thought I was their best friend, so it's just about being smart about it. And so I believe, and guess who many of my first sane crypto clients are? Those people, because I have a relationship with them. And so I'm still a big believer in trying to use automation, but personalized. And so this is an example of that. Sorry to get off on that tangent. And then, so after that email, then they'll drop back over here and they'll get the second email that's more of an automated one, just to remind them if they haven't bought already. And then if you didn't attend, you do get a, kind of your standard replay email. I don't send you a personal one because that probably isn't scalable. I could, but I don't. I just send them an automated one. And then, and that's it. It's literally 2 emails, whichever branch you go down. And then you either drop into our email list or you bought, one or the other. Because I find that if you're gonna, and if you're not, you're not. And, you may later, but that's it. So, oops, sorry about that. Okay, I've never done one of these before. So I remove all these tags, and that's the end of it.
So it's interesting to me that you said sorry for going off on that tangent, because to me that's why I like doing these case studies. It's usually the tangents and the the things that most people don't know. They probably know, hey, send them a follow-up email when they register for the webinar, remind them an hour before. They know that, but they don't know, sending them that thing about the bank accounts, like adding value that gets them, I think, excited about it. They might take some action, which makes them more committed to it. And then the Loom thing is a little, treasure where it's like, yeah, it's hard to get people to a webinar. So if they do show up, spending a few minutes to make them a follow-up video, when the possibility of conversion goes way up and the relationship goes way up, it's just, that's the kind of stuff that I love out of these. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think
now
that's a tangent at all.
Let me add to that, Micah, in case people are wondering. I actually tested extensively, not in the crypto business, in the reverse your funnel business, whether I could drive up webinar attendance rates by sending a personal video before the webinar, which took ages because those numbers were a lot bigger too. They weren't 11 people at that point. And I tried it, and the impact on both the attendance rate and the buy rate was negligible. What I have come to, though, doing it this way, is that very clearly, this is time well spent, because at that point they've heard me for an hour and a half, they bothered to sit through the whole thing, and then they're pretty knocked out when they get an email that starts, a video that starts out, hey Scott, hey whoever, the next morning, and that just starts a really great conversation, because for a $1,500 course, it is generally a sales conversation, although some will buy in the webinar, some have questions, so yeah.
No, gotcha. It's just amazing to me for you to do that, because I have an insane amount of respect for you. Like the podcasts that you do for Sane Crypto, two of my 3 favorite authors in the world are on your podcast. Like you're well connected, you have a big network, your time is valuable, but knowing where to put in those personal touches, I think is so smart. Using Loom for the people who show up, like you said, they've shown a level of commitment, and I think they, not just them putting their time in, but if they've listened to you for an hour, then yeah, that video is going to come through with a lot more impact. So it's just interesting. Like all of this is interesting to me.
Yeah, they probably came from my podcast, which is probably even more meaningful than if they had come just cold from a Facebook ad, back in the day. So probably they've either heard me on someone else's podcast, or they've been listening to mine. So I've been in their ears for some period of time. Then you sit through, what essentially ends up being a sales pitch, even though there's tremendous value in it, right? And then you get a personal video from me. Like, I suspect that's like, whoa, or at least that's what I want them to say is, whoa, like she cares about me, yeah. So, and let's start a conversation.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, in the membership space, it's unheard of, because so many people are trying to do one-to-many, versus this one-to-one at the right place in the right way with a tool that makes it easy and all that. Just seems so smart. I think I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you the next thing there, but
sorry, I think I interrupted you there.
No, you're good. Oh, I remember. So how much time, so between doing a live webinar once a week and then some follow-up videos, how much time would you say that takes on average for you a week altogether?
It's not much. So I'll let you in on kind of a little secret on the so the webinar has been the same slide deck now since maybe early May, right? Up until then, it changed almost every week, literally. And so at that point, it was huge. I was spending an entire day on a new slide deck every week, just till I got it. And then, it wasn't because until you have your hook, your slide deck will probably change as you try different hooks too, So anyway, so that was a lot. It was a lot. But now, where I'm kind of starting to settle in on who I'm talking to and what I'm saying and all of that, it's not that much. I'd say I spend an hour getting ready for the webinar, an hour and a half on the webinar itself each week. And then this morning I did all of the follow-up and setting up for the, changing all the forms and the sites and the tags and everything for the next one. But by the time we got on this call at 11, so 3-4 hours there, and that's it.
Okay, so like 5-ish, 6-ish or so.
Yeah, and a lot of that could, because I have a checklist, of course. Everything's a checklist. This is my pre and post webinar checklist. A lot of this could be given now to a VA to do all of this. But in the early days, it would be silly to do that because it changes so often. It doesn't take me that long, but at some point, yeah, I'll off when things are again more settled. Then and the website isn't changing all the time and all that stuff, then yeah, I'll offload probably 80% of that to a VA.
Gotcha. So just to recap a couple of things from this whole experience. I mean, one, starting off with the simplest thing, selling an info product or whatever that you were just delivering by being live on calls with people helped you refine, have a dialogue actually of, here's what I want to present, but then based on their questions, you're constantly adjusting. And then doing it as YouTube playlist meant you weren't wasting any time building out a membership site or jumping through all those hoops of delivery, overcomplicating it. You were still then focused on marketing. So still marketing first, and you were delivering the value, and I would even argue in the beginning, if people are able to get on a live call with you and ask questions, delivering more value, maybe a little more effort on your part in the short term because you're doing it live versus like, here's some videos, you have access. And now rolling into a membership site, still keeping that super simple so that I think you've got the time to, do those live calls, which are still marketing or sales, however you want to look at it, do those little personalized videos. It's such a different approach to me. Sorry, I don't know how to say it any other way, but it's just like, it's so genius. And looking at this approach to building a membership site, knowing from my own experience of the mistakes I've made and, all the different people who I've helped with their sites, you call this the reverse funnel. I think they're really doing the reverse funnel. They're doing it backwards. You know what I mean? And this would be the right way to do it. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm convinced that it's backward, and even this guy, like this guy that I'm mentoring, and I know everyone can relate to this. He said, I can't believe how much time it takes me just to do one thing, one landing page, one email, one slide deck. And he's like, how could you possibly do all of the stuff that has to get done if you start from the top and go down? You'll never get it done. And that was the pain point, that I originally identified for the reverse funnel hook. That's it. That's the pain. So yeah, I'm convinced it's backward. I don't like to talk my own book, but for me, this works just so much better. You've only got time. So you've got to spend it on the things that really matter.
So what's next for you? Do you think what's coming up in the next 3 or so months, changes to the membership side or the marketing, or what's next?
Yeah. I'm to that point. There's always this inflection point where you say, okay, I've got it. It's small, but I've got that little machine, working. And now the question is starting to spin the machine up, with each iteration. I will start to offload things that I've proven. So for example, I will start to use a service to get me on more podcasts, to start to drive more traffic. I'll start to think about, okay, now how do we drive traffic? How do I offload the non-essential pieces of this to a VA or whatever so I can do what I do? the content of the course itself can stand a lot of improvement with things like, that will be my next kind of focus. As other people start to spin up the things that I've now perfected, then I can start to do things like adding, checklists and software, or price alerts and better, more complete videos and more up-to-date videos, just to really start to polish the, what it is that I sell. I think that's the place where now most of my focus will come. Now, in terms of the membership site itself, I will put a different wrapper on this probably. I mean, this is just this was literally, and this came from my conversation with you, Micah, this is literally a free theme. I mean, I have Divi, which is what's on my main site, and so I could probably pretty it up with the Divi theme or whatever. But yeah, this is like this is a free theme called Author. Author. That's it. And you can see I tried a couple of other ones. So super simple. So yeah, I may put just a slightly more professional wrapper over the top of it. But in terms of functionality, I don't think I will really add a lot to the membership site. It really would be more in terms of content and just those, maybe a little branding, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do.
I love it so much. Like just the basic theme and, keeping it simple, like you said, minimum viable everything. I just have so much contrast of people coming on our calls, our office hours calls or our Q&As or whatever, because I do, obviously, membership software, membership coaching, all this. And so many people who, if you're listening to this call and you're thinking, oh, it's taking Kim 6-7 months to get to the point where she's finally building her membership site. The fact is, some people take 6-7 months to build their membership site, but they're not doing their marketing. They don't know if it'll work. They haven't made any sales. So in my mind, it's like, yeah, you're getting paid essentially to do this stuff. And now going forward, like you said, since you've kind of perfected the model, now scaling it up, what's going to happen, versus most people try to scale not knowing and then perfect it afterward. And it's just crazy to me. Sorry, I'm just I'm blown away. So everyone watching and listening to this right now, just know that, if you look at the site and you think, oh, well, my site's better than that. Or if you look at any of this and think, it's too simple, or why doesn't she do this or that? You're missing the point. It's what are the few things she's doing? Because my guess is, if you're doing it, Kim, it's important because you're not doing anything frivolous. You're not throwing in stuff that you don't have to throw in. And so just the roadmap, that we've talked through about how you did this and some of the stuff you're going to do, to me just seems so spot on, and that's from a lot of negative experience of people, like I said, being on those office hours or Q&As and, asking questions like, well, what theme should I use? And it's like, it does not matter, but they get so hung up on it, and they get a custom designer, and they get hung up. They'll let themselves get hung up on, everything if possible, before they launch, because they want it to be perfect. And I get that tendency. I've been there before to some extent, but this whole way of thinking, I feel, is just so valuable. So,
yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about time, and time is essential. The fact that you have to, as a solopreneur, spend it on the things that are going to give you the absolute maximum leverage. But it's also money. If you're going to bootstrap one of these, which I've always done, where, I mean, I could afford, I'm at a place in my life, fortunately, where if I wanted to, I could say, yeah, I'm going to, put 6 figures into this business and, try to grow it into this behemoth or whatever. And I never, ever do that. That's the rule my husband and I have, is even though we don't have to anymore, we bootstrap everything. If it can't grow on its own revenues, we kill it. And, when you do that, you just have to say, do I really need this plugin? Do I really need this logo? Do I really need this whatever? And the answer is no, you do not. Yeah, I'm telling you, if you have a good product that solves a problem for people at the right price, and you can explain that to them, and they feel like you care, they will pay you. I got my first sales in November, and I've had customers coming in ever since. Is it bazillions of dollars? No, it's not, but it pays the bills enough to keep the wheel spinning up, 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 up. And that's how you bootstrap something.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I've been bootstrapping as well, and you do what you got to do. But this, I know because you have so much experience and multiple successes that it's, it's not exactly just trial and error, and you know what you're doing, and there's a reason for it. So Kim, thank you so much for sharing about your site and spending the time with us. For people who are interested in Sane Crypto, what's the best way for them to connect with you and learn more?
Sure. I would say two things. Obviously, you can find everything at our site, which is sanecrypto.com. It's this one right here. You can, poke around through it and see, even if you're not interested in crypto, what it is that we're, doing, and, what that funnel looks like. Feel free. If you, you can also, I would encourage you to listen to the podcast, because it's something that I take great joy and pride in, and I'd love to be in your ears.
Yeah, and I love the podcast. So, and like I said, I bought Kim's course. She didn't give it to me or anything like that. And I'm into crypto, but more into, like, crypto was exciting and interesting to me. But like you said at the very beginning, there's so much misinformation and craziness going on that I think even your name of the product is partially a hook. It's like, yeah, some sanity in crypto, would be nice. So,
yeah, there was definitely some thought in that. Let me just make one other comment too. This, I don't know when you're going to put this up, Micah, but I am taking down Reverse Your Funnel for now, because it obviously is not my focus. Sane Crypto is. However, there is this really is the process that we talked about. And so, the course is still there, but I'm going to just take the site down. But, like, for example, this roadmap, this is the process right here. Real quick, hang on. I think it's under system. And so what I'm going to tell you is, if you want this, that's not it. If you want a copy of this, just even this map of what we've talked about, I can send it to you, Micah, and yeah, it's this. This is it. 5 Ps, magic hook, market confirmation. This is exactly what we've talked about, right? So since this will be taken down, if you want to include this in the show notes, or something, then we can do that. But I would just offer that to people as a way to maybe visualize a little bit more what we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll go grab it and put it under here in the show notes. And I think this will go out fairly quickly here. So
cool.
Kim, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I always feel so kind of enlightened, and just like, oh man, there's, that feeling of overwhelm that you get. Then I talk to you and it's just like, oh, it's because I'm doing stuff I don't have to do, So I hope everyone listening, gets what she's saying. We'll put this under it, but if you want to go check out reverseyourfunnel.com, if the site's still up, you're lucky and maybe there's something there for you. Otherwise, also go to sanecrypto.com. And yeah, I'd really recommend the podcast. My wife and I have enjoyed that. Every episode we've listened to, and the product's great. And Kim is just a quality person, which I'm sure you can pick up from, listening or watching this. So Kim, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Micah, for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. Thanks so much for all you do as well.
You're welcome.